3 true scary stories on Facebook. Terrifying encounters with the dark side of social media. Have you ever wondered what lurks behind the digital walls of Facebook? The cheerful posts, funny memes, and nostalgic memories may dominate your feed, but beneath that shiny veneer lies a darker realm, one that most people never dare to explore. These are not just stories of glitches or online drama. They are tales of real terror. After hearing them, you may never look at your notifications or friend requests the same way again. Let me take you on a journey into the heart of these chilling accounts, ones I've pieced together from fragments scattered across Facebook threads, private messages, and whispered confessions. They've haunted me ever since I stumbled upon them, and now I feel compelled to share them with you. Perhaps it's my way of lightening the burden of their weight on my mind, or maybe it's because you deserve to know what you might be inviting into your life with a single click. The stories you're about to read aren't just urban legends. They come from real people who experienced something they could neither explain nor escape. At first glance, they may seem disconnected, but as I delved deeper, I noticed unsettling patterns, eerie echoes that suggested something far more sinister than coincidence. Before we begin, let me warn you, the digital world is not as innocent as it seems. A message from an old friend, an invite to an intriguing group, or a harmless live stream could all be gateways to something far darker. Once you step through that door, there's no turning back. These are the stories that Facebook doesn't want you to know. Stories of messages from beyond the grave, cursed groups with sinister agendas, and live streams that lead to unthinkable horrors. As I recount them, pay attention to the smallest details, because you never know when a notification might be more than just a ping. I've always thought of Facebook as a modern campfire where we gather to share pieces of ourselves. But what happens when the fire flickers and the shadows around it grow longer, darker, and more menacing? What if the echoes of our own voices begin to answer back? These questions are not rhetorical. They are warnings. And by the end of this journey, you may find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about your online world. So, let me ask you again. Have you ever wondered what lurks behind the digital walls of Facebook? If you're brave enough, follow me. But remember, curiosity has a cost, and knowledge, once gained, cannot be undone. This is your last chance to turn back. Are you ready? Story 1. The Message from Beyond. The pale glow of Jenna's laptop screen illuminated her dimly lit dorm room. The small space was cluttered with textbooks, empty coffee cups, and a pinboard filled with photos, snapshots of happier times. One photo stood out, Jenna and her best friend Lisa, laughing on a beach, frozen in a moment that now felt like a lifetime ago. Lisa had died in a car accident 6 months earlier, leaving an emptiness that no amount of late-night crying sessions or therapy appointments could fill. Jenna's nights had become a routine of insomnia, scrolling aimlessly through social media until her eyes burned. It was a mindless distraction from the gnawing grief that refused to fade. On this particular night, she was halfway through another scroll when a notification popped up at the corner of her screen. Lisa has sent you a message. Jenna froze, her finger hovering over the mouse. Her breath caught in her throat as if the air had thickened around her. It had to be a mistake. Lisa's account had been inactive since her death, or at least it should have been. Slowly, with a trembling hand, Jenna clicked on the message icon. The message was simple. Remember the summer we spent at the lake? You promised we'd always be there for each other. Jenna's heart thudded in her chest. The lake? How could anyone else know about that? It had been their secret, a pact they'd made on the last night of a summer spent sneaking out, sharing dreams, and vowing to remain inseparable. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure whether to reply or block the account. Logic warred with emotion. It was impossible. Lisa was gone, but this was more than a coincidence. Deciding to push past her fear, Jenna typed a reply. Who is this? This isn't funny. The response came almost instantly. It's me, Jenna. I'm still here. A chill ran down her spine. The words seemed to echo in the room, filling the silence with an unspoken tension. Jenna felt her pulse quicken as tears blurred her vision. It was impossible. It had to be a cruel prank. She glanced at the photo of Lisa on her desk, her friend's bright smile now a haunting reminder of what she had lost. Determined to uncover the truth, Jenna sprang into action. She scoured Lisa's account, looking for signs of recent activity, likes, posts, anything. But there was nothing. The last post was from the week before the accident, a photo of Lisa at a concert with the caption, "Best night ever." Nothing seemed out of place, yet the messages persisted. Jenna reached out to Facebook support, filing a report that someone might have hacked Lisa's account. The automated response promised to follow up, but it felt cold and detached, like shouting into a void. Frustrated, she called Lisa's family the next morning, her voice shaky as she explained the situation. "We haven't touched her account," Lisa's mom said, her voice tinged with grief. "It's too painful for us. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" Jenna assured her she wasn't mistaken. The messages, they're personal. Stuff only Lisa would know. Silence hung on the other end of the line, and then Lisa's mom whispered, "Sometimes, when I visit her room, I feel like she's still here." That confession chilled Jenna more than the messages. Could it really be Lisa? The idea was comforting yet terrifying. Jenna spent the next few days obsessively monitoring Lisa's account, waiting for another message. Each ping of her phone made her heart leap with both hope and dread. Then, late one night, another notification appeared. "Meet me at the lake. You'll understand." Jenna's blood ran cold. The lake. Their lake. It was as if Lisa, or whoever was behind the account, was pulling her back to that sacred place where their bond had been forged. But what would she find there? Jenna's old sedan rumbled to life as she set out for the abandoned playground where Lisa's messages had directed her. The streets were eerily quiet, bathed in the faint glow of streetlights. Her GPS marked the location, though she hardly needed it. The playground was etched into her memory, a relic of their childhood where laughter and whispered secrets once filled the air. But tonight, it felt more like a graveyard than a sanctuary. The closer she got, the heavier the air seemed to grow. Trees loomed over the road like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches casting skeletal shadows across the asphalt. When she arrived, she killed the engine and stepped out into the cold night, clutching her phone tightly as if it were a talisman against the unknown. The rusty swings swayed slightly in the breeze, their chains creaking like faint echoes of the past. Her phone buzzed. Another message. "I'm here, by the swings." Jenna's pulse quickened. She scanned the area, her breath visible in the chill air. There was no one in sight, only the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. She approached the swings cautiously, each step crunching against the gravel. "Lisa," she called out, her voice trembling. The air shifted, and a shadow began to take shape near the swings. Jenna froze, her heart hammering in her chest. The figure was faint at first, like a trick of the light, but as it solidified, Jenna's breath caught. It was Lisa, or something that looked like her. She wore the same outfit from the night of the accident, her face pale and sorrowful, her eyes reflecting a sadness that cut deeper than words. "Jenna," the figure whispered, its voice carrying an otherworldly echo. Jenna stepped back, her instincts screaming at her to run, but she couldn't move. "Lisa, is it really you?" The figure nodded, then pointed toward the jungle gym. "Look beneath the slide." With shaking hands, Jenna knelt beside the slide and began to dig through the dirt and debris. Her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, a small box, rusted with age but still intact. She pried it open and found a stack of old photographs, a key, and a folded piece of paper. Unfolding it, she read the chilling words scrawled in Lisa's handwriting. "It wasn't an accident. He tampered with my brakes. Be careful, Jenna. You're next." The swing chains clattered, and Jenna looked up to see the figure of Lisa dissolving into the night. "Who did this to you?" Jenna cried, her voice breaking. But the figure was gone, leaving only the faint scent of Lisa's favorite vanilla perfume. Her phone buzzed again. A final message. "You know who. Find the truth before it's too late." As she watched, the message glitched, and Lisa's account disappeared entirely. It was as if it had never existed. Jenna sat in stunned silence, clutching the box to her chest. Her mind raced, replaying Lisa's final words. Someone had killed her best friend, and now Jenna was a target. Her grief was replaced with a cold, burning resolve. She would find out who was responsible. But as she turned to leave, a low creak sounded from behind her. She spun around, her flashlight beam slicing through the darkness, landing on nothing but empty swings. Yet the feeling of being watched clung to her like a second skin. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Only the wind answered, carrying with it the faintest hint of a laugh, one she could have sworn belonged to Lisa. Story 2. The Cursed Group. The first snow of winter had blanketed the suburban town, casting a serene, almost dreamlike quiet over the streets. Inside his dimly lit bedroom, Marcus scrolled through Facebook, his desk cluttered with textbooks, energy drink cans, and conspiracy theory notes. A self-proclaimed internet detective, Marcus had a knack for digging into the weirdest corners of the web. But tonight, something new caught his eye, a group invitation that seemed to appear out of nowhere. The group was called the Watchers. Its cryptic description read, "We see what others cannot. To know the truth, you must first reveal your own." Curiosity prickled at Marcus's mind. He clicked the join button. A pop-up appeared, demanding a prerequisite to enter. Confess one truth about yourself. It will remain between you and the Watchers. Marcus hesitated. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. A confession? He wasn't sure if it was some elaborate joke or the gateway to something bigger. Finally, he typed, "Sometimes I lie to my friends to avoid hanging out because I'd rather be alone." It was harmless enough. He hit submit and waited. Moments later, a notification appeared. "You are now a member of the Watchers." The group was nothing like he'd expected. Its feed was an eclectic mix of posts, some harmless, others downright unsettling. But what drew Marcus in were the hidden posts. These required a confession to unlock. His first unlocked post was a grainy video labeled Emily's Dare. He recognized the girl from his school. In the video, she was blindfolded, walking along the edge of an abandoned train bridge as someone off-screen shouted encouragement. The caption read, "You confess, we show. Secrets demand sacrifice." Marcus's stomach churned. He remembered hearing about Emily's disappearance last month. He clicked on another locked post and was prompted for another confession. With growing unease, he typed out a more personal secret. "I cheated on my last biology test." The next video was even worse. A boy standing in a dark forest, visibly shaking as he read from a crumpled piece of paper. "I confess," he whispered, just before the screen went black. The comments were chilling. "One of us now. He's seen the truth. The price has been paid." Marcus's hands shook as he scrolled through the group's archive. There was a pattern. The people in the videos weren't just strangers. They were local kids. Some he knew personally, others by reputation. They all had one thing in common. Every single one had gone missing. The posts began to blur together, each one darker than the last. Dares, confessions, disappearances. Marcus wanted to leave, but when he tried, a notification popped up. Leaving the Watchers comes with consequences. It was then he received a private message from an unknown profile. "Careful, Marcus. You're in too deep now." He stared at the screen, cold sweat prickling his skin. "Who is this?" he typed back. No response. Just as he was about to shut down his computer, his phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "We're watching you. Your next confession determines your fate." Marcus bolted up, his heart pounding as he scanned his room. The snow outside muffled every sound, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was just beyond the glass, waiting. Despite the gnawing dread, Marcus couldn't let it go. He had to know the truth. Taking a deep breath, he reopened Facebook, bracing himself to dive deeper into the Watchers. What he didn't know was that his next confession would seal his fate in ways he couldn't imagine. The more Marcus delved into the Watchers, the more the group's intentions began to reveal themselves, not through posts or messages, but through a chilling sense of growing danger. Every confession he made seemed to lead him deeper into their world. Videos, dares, desperate pleas from missing teens, their faces pale and gaunt as if drained of life. Something wasn't right, and Marcus knew he was no longer just an observer. The turning point came on a frigid night when Marcus, unable to sleep, decided to log back into the group. The messages and videos were becoming a blur of distorted faces and cryptic symbols. But tonight, something new appeared. A live stream. The title was simple, but the words made his skin crawl. The final test. He clicked it. The stream flickered to life, showing an empty, dimly lit room. Shadows moved in the corners, and a low hum filled the air, like a distant chant. Slowly, the camera panned to reveal a group of teens, sitting motionless, their faces pale and drawn, their eyes vacant, as if their spirits had been stripped away. They were no longer individuals, but part of something far darker. The screen froze for a moment, then shifted to a new angle. At the center of the room stood a figure, tall, hooded, and unervingly still. The figure raised their hand, and the teens around them stood, as if on command. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary group of rebellious teens. The leader's voice crackled over the speakers, cold and commanding. Every confession is a step closer to the truth. But some truths are not meant to be known. Marcus's blood ran cold as he realized the depth of what he was witnessing. The Watchers was not just a strange Facebook group. It was a cult, a dangerous, manipulative network that preyed on vulnerable, isolated teens, convincing them to confess their darkest secrets as a means of purging themselves. But the price wasn't just a confession. It was their very souls. He rushed to his chat messages, and for the first time in days, his inbox was flooded with unread messages. One caught his eye immediately. "You think you've uncovered the truth, Marcus, but you've only begun to see the surface. The Watchers are everywhere. We know everything about you. Your weakness, your fear. We've been watching you." His heart pounded in his chest as he read further. "The leader demands your obedience. You have no choice. If you refuse, your family will suffer." Marcus froze. His mind raced. How could they know about his family? He had shared none of that information online. He had been careful, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized the Watchers had eyes everywhere. They were inescapable. He glanced nervously at his phone, which vibrated with an incoming call. The number was unfamiliar, but the message was clear. "Leave the Watchers, and your family will pay the price." Marcus's hands trembled as he disconnected the call. The walls felt like they were closing in, and a suffocating dread settled over him. He felt trapped, as if the very air in his room was thick with malice. He tried to close the group, but the screen froze. It wouldn't let him leave. Frantically, he attempted to shut down his computer, but nothing worked. The group's page remained open, like a dark window into a world he couldn't escape from. The whispers began then, soft at first, like the rustle of wind against his window, but slowly growing louder, more insistent. It wasn't the wind. The whispers came from inside his room, circling him like 1,000 voices, all speaking at once. "You can't run. You can't hide. We see you, Marcus. You're ours now." His heart raced as the temperature in the room dropped, his breath visible in the frigid air. His computer flickered, and then, as if on cue, the screen blinked once more. A new message appeared. "You're ours. Welcome to the Watchers." A sharp knock at his door broke the tension. Marcus jumped, his mind reeling. He knew who it was, his mother. But as he opened the door, there was no one there. Only a small, crumpled piece of paper sat on the floor. Marcus picked it up, his hands shaking. On it were 2 words. "They're watching." The whispers in his room grew louder, filling every corner, every inch of his mind. As he stumbled back, his computer screen went black. His pulse raced. Was this real? Or had he crossed a line too far into a nightmare of his own making? As he tried to leave the room, the door slammed shut behind him with a force that rattled the walls. His escape was impossible. The Watchers were everywhere, and now there was no going back. Story 3. The Final Live. The storm raged outside, wind howling against the windows as rain hammered the roof of Amy's suburban home. Inside, however, the atmosphere was warm, the flicker of her ring light illuminating her face as she smiled brightly into the camera. It had been a quiet night until the power flickered, but Amy was used to that by now. A thunderstorm was nothing compared to the drama of her growing career. Amy, a rising influencer known for her lively personality and quirky content, had decided to live stream her night. Her followers adored the candid moments she shared, whether it was makeup tutorials, fashion hauls, or, most recently, her spontaneous stormy night streams. But tonight, something felt different. There was a nervous energy in the air, as if the storm itself were warning her. Still, she pushed the feeling aside, focusing on her phone as she started her stream. The sound of the wind howling outside only added to the atmosphere, making the experience feel more thrilling. Hey guys, welcome to my live stream. Tonight we're doing something super chill. Just me, you, and this crazy storm. Drop your comments and let me know what you think of the weather outside, she said, her voice bright and cheerful, although she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling gnawing at her stomach. As the numbers climbed in the corner of the screen, her followers flooded the chat with emojis, asking about the storm, sharing their own experiences, and making jokes. Amy read the comments aloud, laughing along, but then the noises began. At first, it was just a crackling sound, like static or radio signal breaking up. Amy paused, adjusting the phone. She thought it was just a glitch in her equipment. Sorry, guys, must be some interference from the storm, she said, trying to brush it off with a wink. But as she spoke, the static returned, growing louder, as if something was trying to break through the airwaves. Her audience noticed it almost immediately. The comments exploded in the chat. Amy, did you hear that? What's going on? There's something in the background. It's behind you, Amy. Turn around. There's something there? Amy froze for a moment, her heart pounding. She glanced behind her, expecting to see nothing but the dimly lit corner of her bedroom. But there was nothing there, only the shadows cast by the storm. Still, the chat continued, an eerie sense of urgency flooding the screen. Amy, you're not alone. Check the background. Behind you. It's there. What is that? Oh my God. What is that thing? Amy's fingers shook as she scrolled through the comments, her stomach twisting into a knot. The people watching her were clearly freaked out, but she couldn't see what they were talking about. Maybe it was just the storm messing with their minds, or maybe someone was playing a prank on her. Still, she couldn't ignore the feeling in her gut, the sense that something was wrong. A loud bang from somewhere in the house startled her, but it wasn't on camera. The chat erupted in panic, with multiple users now writing the same thing. It's in your house, Amy. We saw it. It's watching you. Amy swallowed, forcing herself to stay calm. She glanced around again, but all she saw was the dark outline of her room. The only other light was the flickering of the storm outside. Then, without warning, something moved in the background. A shadow. A figure. Amy's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen it at first, but now it was unmistakable. A tall, dark shape, standing just outside the frame of the camera, but clearly visible to the thousands of viewers watching her live stream. Her hand shook as she tried to turn her phone toward the area, but the figure disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. The chat exploded with frantic messages, but Amy couldn't bring herself to read them. Her heart raced, a cold sweat running down her neck. Then the shadow reappeared. This time it was closer. She didn't know what it was, but it wasn't human. The figure stood motionless in the corner of the room, dark and distorted. It was as if the very air around it bent and twisted, warping the space itself. Amy's hand froze over the phone, her fingers refusing to move as she watched in disbelief. Amy, you need to get out of there. It's not safe. It's not real. The thing in the background. It's not human. Amy felt the chill spread across her skin, her breath shallow. The figure was still there, moving slowly, deliberately, as though it had all the time in the world. Amy finally managed to glance at the chat again, but the messages were no longer helpful. They were frantic, some filled with panic, others just telling her to run. Then, the figure moved again, this time toward her. The camera caught it. The figure was growing larger, more menacing. Its face was obscured by shadows, but Amy could feel its eyes. They were watching her. Suddenly, the sound in her headphones went dead, replaced by a low, guttural growl that reverberated through the room. The viewers in the chat were screaming at her now, telling her to stop the stream. But Amy couldn't move. She was frozen, too terrified to react. It was like the air itself had thickened. The storm outside, now a distant memory, as the temperature in the room dropped to an unbearable chill. Then the figure spoke, its voice a whisper that seemed to come from every direction at once, as if it were in the room, outside, and inside her mind all at once. "You shouldn't have streamed tonight, Amy. You've caught my attention." The camera flickered and the live stream cut out. Amy sat there, her phone in her hand, unable to process what had just happened. But the silence was worse than any noise she had ever heard. It was deafening. Then, the screen of her phone lit up again. It wasn't the live stream. It was a message. "You're next." Amy sat in her bedroom, her mind reeling as she stared at the blank screen of her phone. The live stream had ended abruptly, cutting off midstream as if someone had snatched it away from her. The heavy silence in her room was oppressive, and the storm outside seemed to have intensified, the wind howling fiercely against the windows. Her hands trembled as she pressed play on the recording of the live stream, hoping it was all some sort of sick prank, hoping the shadowy figures, the growl, the chilling whispers had just been some glitch, some trick of the camera. But as the video loaded, Amy's stomach twisted in fear. The footage began with her usual lively self, talking to her followers about the storm and casually moving around her room, unaware of the creeping horror that would unfold. The same shadow appeared in the background, moving ominously. But this time, she could see it more clearly. It wasn't just a figure. It was a shape, a malevolent force. The longer she watched, the more she realized that what she thought were random flickers or glitches were actually deliberate, slow movements. Like the entity was studying her, watching her, waiting for something. As she scrubbed through the video, her breath caught when she reached the part where the figure had gotten closer to her. She was frozen in fear, her eyes wide, staring at the space in her room. But in the video, she wasn't reacting to the shadow behind her. She hadn't even seen it. It was as if she had been blind to its presence, too trapped in her own world to notice the dangers lurking around her. But then came the horrifying realization. The figure wasn't just a ghost. It was something darker, something much more malevolent. The growl she had heard in her headphones during the live stream wasn't just interference. It was a warning, a signal that the entity was getting closer, that it was feeding off her fear. Amy's breath caught in her throat as she watched the video reach its final moments. The storm in the background seemed to grow louder, the wind rattling the windows in her bedroom. The shadow grew larger, its shape becoming more distorted, almost as though it was twisting itself into something more tangible. Then, just as the stream cut off, the last frame showed the shadow darting toward her with inhuman speed. The screen froze for a moment, then flickered violently. The next moment, something truly terrifying happened. Without Amy initiating it, the stream abruptly resumed. Her heart raced as she watched in disbelief. The video was no longer just a recording of the storm of her previous live stream. It showed her sleeping, her body lying motionless in her bed. The ring light that had illuminated her face earlier was now dark. The room was eerily quiet, save for the sound of the wind outside. But it wasn't the silence that scared her. It was the figure. The dark shape was standing over her bed. Amy's blood ran cold as she saw the entity, its form no longer just a shadow but something far more solid, more grotesque. Its twisted face loomed just above her, its eyes black as coal, a grin stretched unnaturally across its face. The whispers that she had heard earlier on the live stream now echoed through her room, but this time, they were not coming from the speakers. They came from everywhere. They were inside her head, her mind, as if the entity was speaking directly to her, even though she was unconscious. "You shouldn't have streamed, Amy," the voice rasped. "Now you belong to me." Amy could feel the coldness of the room even as she watched the playback. The chill seemed to seep into her bones, her skin prickling with dread. The thing had been waiting for her all along, watching her every move, silently drawing closer with each passing moment. And now it had her. The live stream continued on its own, showing the figure lingering beside her bed, waiting, watching. The entity seemed to relish the moment, drawing strength from her fear even in her slumber. Amy's face appeared to contort in pain, though she was still asleep, as if she was experiencing the horror in her dreams. And then, just as Amy had feared, the stream ended again. But unlike before, this time, there was no cut to black. The screen remained, flickering intermittently, the final frame showing the room empty. The bed was undisturbed, but Amy was gone. Her phone buzzed beside her, but it wasn't a notification from her followers. No, it was something worse. She checked the messages, her heart pounding in her chest as she read the chilling words that appeared. "It's too late for you, Amy." The storm outside seemed to reach a crescendo as she stared at the screen, but the messages didn't stop. The live stream had begun again, as if nothing had happened, as if the storm had passed. But the room was still empty, and the entity's presence seemed to linger, hanging heavy in the air. Every night, at midnight, the live stream resumed. Viewers continued to flood in, drawn by the eerie pull of the empty house, the silent presence that hung in the air like a thick fog. No one saw Amy. No one knew where she had gone. But the live stream never ceased, capturing the haunting silence of her home. And in the background of each video, the shadow waited. As I sit here, reflecting on the stories I've just shared, one thing becomes painfully clear. They are not just random occurrences. They are not the work of chance, nor the whispers of overactive imaginations. No, these tales are intricately connected, bound together by something far darker than mere coincidence. All of them, Jenna's haunting messages, Marcus's cursed group, Amy's final live stream, are connected by a force that thrives on fear, on the vulnerability of the human spirit. And it's all happening within the digital realm we've come to embrace as part of our everyday lives. These stories aren't just isolated events. They are a manifestation of something far more sinister. What if I told you that there is an algorithm on Facebook, a hidden mechanism designed not only to manipulate emotions, but to harvest human fear? What if these stories were not the result of random hacking or paranormal activity, but rather a deliberate, terrifying design embedded in the very fabric of social media? What if Facebook, a platform we've all trusted to connect with others, has been using its power to feed something far darker, feeding on our deepest emotions, our darkest thoughts? The common thread that runs through each of these tales is not merely the supernatural, though that alone would be terrifying enough. No, it's the way these digital platforms blur the line between the virtual world and the real one. Jenna, Marcus, Amy, all were victims of a system that thrives on their fears, their confessions, their vulnerabilities. What began as innocent interactions in a place designed to foster connection became a playground for something far more sinister. The emotions they shared, the personal details they spilled, were nothing more than bait for an algorithm waiting to ensnare them. And then the consequences. These people, these young souls, trusted the digital world to offer them solace, to provide a sense of community. But what they didn't realize is that every click, every post, every stream was feeding something that no one could see. What began as harmless curiosity or the pursuit of online fame became their undoing. They had shared more than they intended, and now there was no turning back. This is the chilling reality of the digital age we live in. We are constantly tethered to these platforms, sharing pieces of ourselves, our thoughts, our secrets, our lives, without fully understanding the risks involved. We naively trust these spaces to be harmless, to be fun, to be safe. But in reality, we are feeding a machine that understands us better than we understand ourselves. And once it has us, there's no escape. Social media is no longer just a place to connect with friends or share a funny video. It has become a mirror, a lens through which our deepest fears are magnified. We've crossed into a realm where the lines between what is real and what is digital are no longer clear. The digital world we thought was a reflection of our own reality is now feeding into it, shaping it, bending it to its will. It blurs the boundaries between the safe and the dangerous, the known and the unknown. But what if these stories are just the beginning? What if the horrors we've seen are only the tip of the iceberg? What if the algorithm that harvested Jenna's grief, Marcus's obsession, and Amy's fear is still out there, watching us all. Maybe it's not finished with us yet. In fact, maybe it's already looking for its next victim. I wish I could say that I stumbled across these stories by accident, that they were just random posts I found in a deep, dark corner of the internet. But the truth is, I found them on Facebook, just like you would find anything else. They were hidden in plain sight, buried beneath layers of posts and ads, unnoticed by most. But not by me. As I scrolled through them, something odd happened. My screen flickered, just like it did when I first began researching these stories. It was brief at first, just a subtle glitch, but then it started happening more frequently. I thought nothing of it, attributing it to a bad internet connection or an old device. But now I'm not so sure. The screen flickered again, and then a message appeared. "You're next." My heart skipped a beat. The words seemed to pulse on the screen, a chilling reminder that this might not just be a story anymore. What if the algorithm I've been telling you about? What if it has already found me too? The reality is, we have no way of knowing what it's capable of. We think we're in control, that we're just scrolling through our feeds, posting pictures, chatting with friends. But what if we're being watched? What if our deepest fears are being fed into a system that knows us better than we know ourselves? And one day, we too will become part of its twisted game. The truth is, I don't know what comes next. I don't know if I'll be the next victim of this algorithm. I don't even know if I'm already a part of it, unknowingly contributing to something far darker than I can comprehend. But I do know this. The line between the digital world and the real world has been forever blurred. And if you think this is all just a story, just a warning, just something that happens to others, I suggest you think again. Because the next time you click that accept button on a friend request, join a group, or share something personal online, you might not be as safe as you think. The game is no longer just on the screen. The game is real, and it's waiting for you.